The only reason that you are failing right now is because you have not put everything into this that you could have. You will never have the opportunity again to go after your dream of being an entrepreneur and doing this yourself. There's no way you're going to be able to do both, because to do real estate full time, you have to be in it every single day.
How can you help us, though, continue to help you? First, please subscribe to the channel. Like us. If you listen to the audio version, leave us a 5-star review wherever you can. If you see our posts, please share those posts, share the content, and link back to our law firm website, which helps us to continue our SEO marketing and grow our firm and help small business owners. All right, everybody, welcome to, I think we are recording now. Welcome to another episode of the show. If you are listening, as always, on one of your favorite directories, leave us a 5-star review whenever you can. If you're watching us on YouTube, we're beefing up the channel. We're changing the format. We're doing all kinds of great stuff, B-roll commercials, exciting things. Subscribe to the channel, like us, share us. The more subscribers we get, the more we can maybe monetize this thing at some point and get more resources to you guys and keep growing the show. So I'm excited to have a new guest on the show. I think Connie is my first guest from Rhode Island, but we'll figure that out in a minute. For those of you listening to the advice that we discuss, remember that the information we share on these episodes is for entertainment purposes only. It's not a guarantee of success or to be construed of advice of any kind. And if you're going to make decisions based on anything, always be sure to check with local professionals before doing so. So, Connie is a unique individual. She's a realtor, and she and I both know, we'll talk about a lot of realtors out there, but she's got a little bit of a different approach. So Connie is a real estate skater. So she's a roller skater, but she's also a realtor. So she's the realist skater. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Connie, thanks for coming on the show. And maybe you want to start talking about, a little bit, introduce yourself and your background, and we'll talk about the skating.
Absolutely. Thanks, Mitch. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you. So the realist skater, that's me. I started my real estate journey about 8 years ago. And, like you said, like you throw a rock and you're going to hit a realtor, right? Every single person in this world's a real estate agent. Uh,
Yeah,
there
it's
are
not a lot of
not.
barriers to entry.
But I started 8 years ago. I went full time about 3 years ago, right after COVID, really when the market had picked up quite a bit. And I had just made a decision that it was time to leave my corporate career that I had been juggling while doing real estate at the same time, and decided to dive in. And that was right before interest rates decided to shoot up and pretty much the market went to a hard stop. And at that point, I had to figure out a way to differentiate myself from every other realtor out there to stay afloat. And so that's how the Real Escator was born.
Yeah.
But in the process of that, I also was going through a divorce. I had just had a baby. I had gained 100 pounds during COVID, which is always a fun thing to do as a woman. And my life was really on this really kind of rocky trajectory. So I decided to stop drinking alcohol. I picked up roller skating as a hobby and
Okay.
as a form of exercise.
That's
That's where the
where the
roller
roller
skating
skating
came in,
came in.
yep.
Got it. Okay.
And from there, I
Okay.
lost 90 pounds. I documented my journey on social media. The Real Escator was born. So it's been a really
Okay.
interesting couple of years, and it's kind of crazy to see how it's all come together so quickly.
Yeah. So you really didn't say, I'm going to build this community. You just started sharing your story and posting it online, and it started kind of getting a life of its own that way. Is that kind of how the whole
Yeah.
connection
So
came about?
actually, I'm in the process of building a branding workshop right now for other realtors. I was asked by one of the big brokerages locally to
Okay.
host a big seminar for about 75 people. And I sat and had a meeting with them yesterday.
Okay.
And they said, when we first started watching you, it was so cringe. We all shuddered at the thought of putting ourselves out there as you were. And now we want
Right.
everyone to do what you do, right? So it was one of those
Yeah.
things where nobody understood it when I was doing it, and I think that I just had this idea of I have to show what I'm going through now so that I can see where I've come
Right.
from, because I know where I'm heading. But yeah, it
Right.
was that authenticity.
Yeah. A little bit kind of cathartic and kind of
Absolutely.
therapeutic, right?
We're all so scared to show up.
Yeah.
We've been taught a lot that we have to show up
Yeah.
perfectly in a lot of professions. And I think
Yeah.
times have changed where people want to work with real people. They don't want to work with the cookie cutter, I'm
Right.
perfect and I show up perfect every day, because nobody's life is perfect. S- No, and,
Not even
my big
close.
focus in real estate is the 5 Ds, so death, divorce, disability, downsizing, and diapers. People who are going through major life
Okay.
changes, because 'cause I've been through every single one of
Right.
those, and you will never learn in a real estate class how to hold someone's hand when their husband died after 30 years and they're selling their house, or how to talk them through while they're
Right.
fighting with their soon to be ex-husband or ex-wife, and they're trying to figure out what to do with this house and how to manage both sides of that. You don't learn that in a real estate course. You learn that through life experience.
Right. I think also a lot of people are very, I mean, it is uncomfortable for them, right? They feel like they're kind of lifting up the curtain and they don't want people to see behind the curtain all the things, and they think that the stuff that they go through are unique to them, and they're embarrassed by it. But then, when you're brave enough, and I will use that term because I think you were brave to do it, at the beginning, for whatever reason, they first of all, I think people, follow that, like they're willing to do things because you were brave about it, but they also realize that, hey, wow, that happened to me. I Life is just the kind of thing where things can be going great and then it just hits you over the head with a 2x4, and you don't know what that's going to be, but it's something. Like, we've all had to deal, like, that's just life. I mean, I try to tell my kids that doesn't stop until, like, you die, and then the people that are left over, they got their own problems and, struggles and stresses and anxiety, all that kind of stuff is just because we think it's only happening
Right.
to us, and I give you a lot of credit for doing that. But so you were just talking, you haven't given this seminar yet, right? You've given
Correct, yeah,
other
so I've had
talks
a
and
couple
stuff.
of keynote speeches, and the keynote speeches have really been focused
Yeah.
around I'm a millennial, I was born in the '80s. We were taught a very specific path
Yeah.
in life. You're gonna go to school, you're gonna get good grades, you're gonna go get a job, find out get married.
Yep. I was born in the
Yep,
60s.
get
They taught
married,
us the
buy a
same
house,
thing.
have
So,
a baby, and I think for a lot of women, and I don't know about for men,
yeah.
but the after the have a baby part and get married part, nobody told you how to live after that, like, that was
Right. You lose your
completely.
identity. Right.
And
Exactly.
I found myself in that
Right.
position where I thought to myself, okay, I'm in my early 30s. I've done all of these things. I checked every box. I feel so empty inside. Not that I didn't love my daughter. My marriage was another story, but I loved being a mom, but I just still felt like I myself was
Right.
still meant to have a purpose and a place in this world beyond just having that
Yeah.
identity. And so my keynote
Right.
speech that I give is about you have to be the one. No one's gonna come save you. No one is gonna bang down your door
Right.
and tell you that you're not living your purpose, and here's the big neon sign that says it's time for change. You have to be the one to do that for
Right.
yourself if the path you're on, no matter where you are, 30 years old, 40, 50 years old, you
Right.
you have
You got to
to.
advocate for
And I just
yourself.
don't think there's enough,
Yeah.
talk about that and about how important it is to still keep your identity or find it if you've lost it.
Right. Yeah. No, I think maybe we're getting there, maybe slower than we should. But if you go back to the 40s and 50s, as a feminist, I mean, women were in the home, and that's the men pushed them there. And, you know, eh, even during the war, before the war, they were like, well, women shouldn't be in the army. Who's going to take it? Which is a good argument, right? Who's going to take care of the children? Society is going to fall apart because women are, feeding us and taking care of the children and take care of the house. And I think that men, who were, very close minded about it, were like, well, I mean, after you have kids, then you're going to take care of me.
Right?
I mean, you're my wife, right? That's a, and then finally there was all these people that were women that were upset and dissatisfied and didn't know what to do. And then when the world started connecting, even before the Me Too movement and all that kind of stuff, but people started connecting and saying, hey, yeah, I am very depressed. I am doing nothing. What the heck? And then they all started realizing that they're all going through the same thing, which is kind of what happens with anything, right? When you go through an experience that you aren't happy about, I guess that's why we go to therapy, right? We talk about it and we learn that
Yep.
other people are going through it. And yeah, and I think that people do have to find that place in
And
that purpose,
I
not
think a lot of
place
people
in their
don't
life.
realize it wasn't until the '70s that a woman could get a mortgage on her own without a husband to co-sign for a loan.
Yeah,
You know, we've
exactly.
come a long way.
Yeah,
And I don't know, as a millennial, whenever I think '70s, I think that's 30 years ago. I'm like 30 years ago in the '70s, but it's
I know. Well, the 7
Oh, no,
actually,
it's
it's not,
50.
it's more
Yeah.
than
I
that, right?
just in
Because
my
that's 50.
brain as a millennial, we always think
Yeah,
the '70s was
I know.
yeah.
40s and
Now I'm
50s,
like, "Oh, that was a
70 years
long
ago.
much little longer than I think." Yeah.
It's a life.
But, there's
Right.
been I
Exactly.
think sometimes we forget the strides we've made really haven't been that long. 50 years is not that long of a time for that's our mothers are fine were the ones that, could get a mortgage, but our grandmothers couldn't. And so I think it's
Right.
important to understand that evolution, like you said, it's happening, maybe not as fast as we wanna see it, but it's so important to be able to say, if, like, you're just not on the path that you wanna be on, it's okay, right? It's okay to want something different for your life, even if what you were taught is this.
Yeah. Right. Well,
Yeah,
taught or
true,
suppressed. I don't know
very
what the
true.
word is, but it wasn't a choice. Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, we've come a long way. But given what's happened in the last, I don't want to get political about it, but in the last 10 years, we've gone back 20 years probably. So we got to make
Y
up for lost
yeah,
time now.
yeah, and
All the rights
like you
that
said, it's
daughters
interesting to
just
me,
ridiculous.
it's hard when people tell you that your bodily autonomy is political, right? You're like, it's like, "Why?"
Yeah,
Not to get too deep into that, but it's like,
physical body,
I'm a
right?
human being, not a policy.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Like you wouldn't think in 2025, like you would have to worry about making your own healthcare
Yep,
decisions. Like that's absurd. It's an absurd conversation to even have that, like, oh,
yep,
that'll
I
never
know.
happen again.
Well,
It
and
is.
someone
Yeah.
recently said to me,
Yeah.
and
I know.
I will
Well,
not call them out as to who it was, but someone asked me if when girls are born, were they born with all their parts, or do some of them come as you get older? And all I could think about was, you are voting about my body, and you don't even know what parts I'm born
right.
with.
Right. Exactly. You don't even know like science and biology and the whole thing. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Some of the things I hear people say, but some of those people think the earth is flat. So, I mean,
Yeah.
hello, like whatever, we don't have science anymore. Like, science isn't real. Somebody actually said that to me, that science is not real. I'm like all of science, like what, like that is just a
Which
very
parts of
broad,
science
ridiculous
aren't real?
comment.
Can we
So
explain? We'll have to
yeah,
ask ChatGPT its opinion.
right, exactly. It's probably that would be
Yeah.
an interesting exercise. So, okay, so let's talk more about you and your journey and the things that you're doing. So, I mean, I know that you make your living as a realtor, but you've built this community, I guess, mostly of women, but not it's not exclusively for women, but that's kind of what the attractive part of it was. Um, what's going on in that world? Like how yeah, I mean, like, what are you doing with all these people? Are you sharing ideas? Do you have retreats? Are you just posting blogs and they're just reading them? I mean, what's the whole? Because I know you have a pretty
Yeah,
big following
we just hit
online, right?
100,000 on Instagram. We've hit 80,000 on Facebook, and
Okay,
I started moving over to the
nice.
TikTok world. In the TikTok world, I don't have as many, but I tell people like TikTok's where I get to be more feral. TikTok's where you get like the unedited version of my day. So it's
Yeah, the
it's so
clips and the
interesting because
things.
what am I doing with this community is kind of a question that I'm actually still figuring out. I've been asked for retreats, I've been asked for coaching programs, and those are things that I'm starting to build out. At the moment, what I'm doing with it is
Hmm.
sharing still my transformation, where I came from and where I am now, and the mindset that it took to get there. Because I think 99% of what I went
Yeah.
through was mindset. I mean, in August of
Oh, it is
2023,
true.
I had $78 in my bank account. I was a mom to a two-year-old
Okay.
daughter. I was living in a tiny little condo. I was trying to get food stamps, and I couldn't because you had I had no I it was harder to get food stamps than it was to just go out and, like, hustle for, like, another 50 bucks somewhere. I won't,
Right.
bartending or whatever I could do, right? Whatever I could get my hands on. I was selling
Yeah.
furniture.
Of course. Apparently, it's
Yeah,
getting
like, I was
harder.
selling my
So
furniture on
yeah,
Facebook Marketplace to try to make a couple of bucks just to get by.
just to get money.
And
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
last 2 years, obviously, I'm in a much different position right now, but that would not have happened if I didn't have the mindset of no matter what, I'm not gonna fail, no matter what, I'm gonna make it. Spending a lot of time being able to focus on the thoughts that came through my head because I wanted to beat myself up on the daily, but that's not gonna help anybody. Not gonna help me, not gonna help
Of
you.
course.
And
Right. Of
so,
course.
you know, to go from $78 in your account 2 years ago to, "I just got this in the mail." I was featured on the front cover of the Australian magazine, That's Life. That was cool to walk into
Nice,
today, like, "Oh, I'm on
nice.
the cover."
Yeah, sure.
That was today, I
That
got
was
this in the mail.
today?
Yeah, they featured it a couple of
Nice.
weeks ago.
Very nice. Congratulations.
So right now I've been
Okay.
sharing that journey with people, and I'm also hosting I'm launching July 10th a program called SkateMate, where SkateMate's an adult skating program where
Okay.
people can come roller skate with me. We're gonna host it, like, once a month.
Nice.
Yes,
It's
this is
obviously
yeah, so
local
right now
in
this is
Rhode
starting
Island.
local.
Yeah.
I'm partnering with United Skates, which is a more national, roller skating rink. So, the thought is, like, maybe if it picks up,
Okay.
other rinks will wanna launch this program too, but it's a bit of mindset work in the first, like, 10, 15 minutes, and then we go into skating, and it's really more of a community project. I'm not the best skater in the world. Like, I tell people all
Okay.
the time, like, I am not the best roller skater. I just love it, and I started off
Right.
being probably the worst roller skater, and now it's something that I enjoy doing so much, but I you don't need to be the best at something to help inspire others to do it. Just enjoy it,
No,
right?
just
So I
enjoy
think
it.
that's, like, the whole purpose
Right.
is to bring community
Yeah.
together, to host some community events, to get more people on skates. So many people think roller skating's for kids, but the exercise it provides, the ability to try something that's really hard at first and feel it get easier and easier and easier as you go is a really rewarding experience, and so that's a lot of
Yeah.
that's a lot of what I'm sharing kind of with my community is, number 1, you're never gonna be great at something when you first start it, like, you have to start to be great. You're never gonna start great, you do have to start to be great.
Right.
Number 2, life is hard. Things are
Okay.
hard, so if you wanna give up right away on something, right, try
Try
it
it.
and figure
Right.
out and give it a shot before you give up, right? And so everything that I've done
Yeah.
with roller skating, I think it was it simultaneously happened with the hardest time of my life.
It's like a
It
metaphor for
is, and
life.
so, but,
Yeah.
I'm hoping that in my future, I've talked to Moxie Roller Skates about possibly hosting a retreat this year out in California. Um,
Nice.
it's
Yeah.
one of those things where I'm trying to figure out how to bring this community together and get even more face time with them because the amount of people that slide into my DMs and share where they've been and what they're going through and how my
Yeah.
story has helped them, it's really incredible for me to think that just because I've posted some videos on the internet, that it changed someone's life in
Yeah.
Ohio, right? Or someone left a yeah,
Right.
it's
No, it's
it's
crazy.
it's very humbling to feel that, but it also feels very
Yes.
much like this is my calling to keep trying to help other people find their way.
Yeah. No, I think, well, it's two things I wanted to say. One is that when it comes to like mindset and stuff, and I've said this to people who are down and out, I'm helping them fix things. If you have the mindset that you're broke versus people that have a poor mindset, like broke is temporary, right? It's something you're overcoming, which you did actually, and you figured a way out. And it wasn't a question of, but people unfortunately you know, that are in poor mindsets and maybe because of their socioeconomic condition and whatever, that's harder to change. And it is a lot. And I'm not saying that's easy. I don't want people to misunderstand, and say that, you just change your mind and you're broke, not poor, and you can change. Some people are in very difficult situations, but I think that a lot of times when we're down and out, we're struggling, especially as business owners. It's just a temporary thing. Like you just got to figure it out and get past it. And I like the whole roller skating metaphor. Now, I want to clarify something, right? Roller skates are four wheels, and inline skating is more like right roller blades or whatever. Blading is a little bit
Correct.
different than what we're talking about, right? We're talking
Yeah,
about
and so
four wheel
rollerblades
skating,
do
correct?
usually have 4 wheels, but they're straight in a line. Roller skates have 2 and 2, so they're
Right,
quads. So you've got the 2 in the front, 2 in the back.
right. A little bit easier. You don't
It's
fall,
actually
but it's
it's so
easier.
much harder to roller skate than rollerblade. It is, at
Is
least
it?
in my opinion, and a lot of people who I've spoken to in their opinion. Um,
You just think
I
rollerblading's
do, and I
easier?
don't know the science behind why. But well, I do, I
Did you
have.
do both?
99% of my time is on roller skates now, but with roller skates, you have edges, so you have outside edge, inside edge, and so if you think about it, when you're roller
Okay.
skating, you have to consider 2 outside edges, 2 inside edges. So you've got these 4 kind of sections that you're dealing with.
Because of
On
the wheels.
rollerblades,
Right.
you're they're all in a straight line, so you really just have to keep your body, your center of gravity over that one skate, and it's gonna go wherever you go. But roller skating has a
Your
lot more
balance. Yeah.
technical, and you can do a lot with rollerblades, but there's a lot of technicality in roller skating when you wanna get into, like, jam skating or doing footwork. It's a lot of, okay, like, you're gonna put pressure on this front right wheel on your right foot, and you're gonna put pressure on the 2 back wheels on your left foot, depending on the move you're trying to do. So there's a lot of technicality.
Yeah. So you have twice as many. Yeah. So do you? Yeah. Right. So you got
Yeah.
8 wheels that
It's
you're dealing
interesting though.
with,
I have not
unless
considered
you're a
myself
fourth
athletic for, like, a
animal.
very long time. Like, in high school, I won for softball. I was on one of the number 1 softball teams of the state, but I was really the bench warmer, but I won I won the coaches
You were on the
award
team
for,
though.
like, the most team spirit.
Okay.
But
Perfect.
roller skating
All right.
has made me so much more confident in my physical abilities that I now play dodgeball, kickball, softball, flag football. I've joined all of these different sporting leagues for adults, and I actually do pretty well. So I'm like, wow, like this really changed my mindset about how I am at sports because I thought I sucked for the longest
Right.
time.
Yeah. Like you
Yeah,
had the ability to do it. You just didn't
right.
believe
And,
it in your own
like you
mind.
said about mindset, you know, it's like going to the gym every day, right? Having a different mindset is
Yeah.
an actual exercise that you have to do on a daily basis because it's reps. It's
Yeah.
reps at the gym. It's getting whether you're writing down your
Correct.
affirmations or you're writing down your manifestations. Some people think of that stuff as poo poo and they laugh at it, but I'll tell you right now, it's gone to a
Right.
point where like when I finally get to the point where I'm like, I'm gonna write this down and I'm gonna put it on a board and I'm gonna write it every day. When those things constantly come true, you
Yeah.
start to get a little freaked out, like, okay, I better be real careful what I manifest. And you have to be careful about,
Yeah.
yeah,
That stuff's
and
real.
that's why I'm always
Yeah.
so cautious about even saying, I try very hard not to let negative spew out of my mouth because that's just as powerful. It's not just saying
Right. You're just going to attract
absolutely
negative
all
things.
day, all day. Yep.
That's the reality. Is Yeah. 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 And some of that is practice, right? So you think it's silly at first, but then you're 4, 6 months in, and it starts to manifest itself and change your life. You go to the gym once or twice, it's not enough. You go to the gym for 6 months straight, 8 months straight, a year straight, you'll be more addicted to going than you'll be addicted
At
to not
exactly.
going. I mean, so some of that has to do with, yeah, how involved. Now I got a little bit of a confession since you build your whole thing on
Okay.
vulnerability. I gotta be honest with you. So my wife, and she probably still can rollerblade, right? So we got rollerblades. This is a while ago when our kids were little. We got rollerblades, right? We got the wrist guards and everything because we all know, like during the summer, people
Yeah.
rollerblade and they break their wrists. They're all right. They're all shouldn't that right. So I think I got down the end of the driveway, wiped out, like flipped over. My feet just went out from under me. I'm like,
We're
that's
done.
it. Not doing this, and never skated again. And my wife criticizes me all the time that I didn't get back up to. And then of course we grew out of them. I don't know where the skates are anymore, but so that was my start, and I didn't stick with it, and I'm a little embarrassed by it. I
Well,
get
wear your
ridiculed on
gear
it.
and
So
have no fear is a
so
fun little, slogan I have.
I
Yeah, you
like
gotta wear
that
your gear and have
statement.
no fear. Knee
Yeah.
pads, elbow pads, and then you gotta fall on your squishy parts. That's my number 1 advice. You're gonna
Right.
fall on the
Yeah,
squishy parts.
good
That's
point.
what they're there for.
Right. Well, the reason that people get hurt is because they feel embarrassed to like wear the gear,
Yep,
like they think they look silly until they end up in the emergency room because they broke their wrist or shattered their
right.
bicep or whatever it is. And is all you had
Get
to
to get
do
the
is wear
$10 wrist guards from
some
Amazon, you
gear and
could
you'd be
have
okay.
saved yourself.
Yeah,
Yep,
exactly. Exactly. Or, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of sports where people don't. Yeah, they don't. They ride their bike and they don't wear a helmet. They ride those scooters and they're not wearing helmets. They're adults. Well, when they flip over, land on their head, which is probably harder than the kid's head, it's probably going to crack open. So Now you mentioned before about roller skating. Always people thinking of it more of a kid's sport. I guess I do, but if I think about it, when I'm out in the park or I'm at a roller skating rink, there's 80% of them are adults. I mean, there's not like
Yeah.
unless it's a kid's birthday party, there's not a lot of, it's mostly adults doing it. So yeah, I think that's just a
Yeah, and I
misnomer. I
think
think,
a lot of,
you
like, for
know,
my generation especially, people remember, like, they'll say, "I remember when I was a kid, I used to go to the roller skating rink. I remember I used to skate, on Friday nights, or I used to do this." And so there's a part of it too that does ignite
right.
the inner child. I remember the first time I left the rink, I had, like, tears in my eyes because I was like, "I haven't felt that free in so long." And anyone who is
Yeah.
a bigger person. Like, I was almost 300 pounds when I started skating. I was pushing, like, 270. I had lost
Wow.
about 20 pounds from my heaviest, but I was
Wow.
still up there, and it was a very low impact sport. Now, not when I fell. It wasn't low impact when I fell, but if you're
Right.
wearing the right gear and you're out there and you're getting a lesson and you're learning how to skate the right way, it's amazing cardio and you're working a lot of different muscles like running on a treadmill was hard for me when I was that size. Going up and down stairs was really hard for me when I was that size.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
skating at the rink was doable. I was exhausted, I was sweaty,
Just
but
to
you
glide a
can
little bit.
glide and
Yeah.
my muscles would hurt and be sore, but it was a good sore. It was like I had gone to the gym and done 100 squats, right? That's what it ended up feeling like. Um, so the
Oh,
transformation
wow.
of, like, my body from, even when I was thinner before I had my daughter and, gained all that weight, I still wasn't as toned and as in shape as I am now from roller skating. And then what
Yeah.
it's interesting, I was never a gym gal, and then I started going to the gym specifically to be better at roller skating. I was like, "Well, what muscles can I work?"
This podcast is brought to you by our affiliate sponsor, iEmployee. iEmployee is a virtual assistant service that hires almost anyone for any role in your company right out of the Philippines. Most roles range from $7 to $9 an hour for highly skilled and experienced VAs. And whether you need an executive assistant, social media manager, video editor, customer service, sales, you name it, they have it. We use iEmployee for our VA services, from editing and promoting the podcast to all the PR and promotion of our law firm. iEmployee acts as a virtual field supervisor on the back end with live video monitoring and reports on a daily basis with screenshots of your VA's workday, and along with complete HR and payroll duties. No more paying for overpriced and underqualified workers. There's a link in the show notes to get a 1-week free trial, and I encourage you to take advantage of it. Maybe you're getting your calendaring from one software and you're invoicing from another. Evenoo is a platform that we use as one of our sponsors to run our entire business. And there's other features like auto payments and integrations with QuickBooks. Visit evenoo.com, EVONUE.com to learn more. There's also a link in the show notes. And be sure to tell them that the accidental entrepreneur referred you. Yeah, it
Right, to
strengthens
get
your
even
body. Right.
better at
Right.
this.
Yeah. So I guess, so the weight came from having babies, right?
So,
That's kind of
I
where it
always
started.
had a really hard relationship with food. It was definitely a coping mechanism for me. So when I got pregnant and, we
Mhm.
took away all my vices, you can't, you can't drink, you can't smoke, you can't do anything. I turned
Yeah.
to food.
Right.
Then COVID hit and the seclusion hit. So I went from being someone who was going to the
Yeah.
gym 3 times a week, even pregnant, to I couldn't leave my house. And now I'm sitting eating like bonbons on the couch all day,
Right.
and on top of that, my doctor
Right.
had put me on antidepressants. They thought that, it would be a good idea to kinda get ahead of the curve because COVID was so isolating. They were worried I would get depressed. So they started me on antidepressants, and
Right.
as soon as I started on the antidepressants, I blew up. That was like the icing on the cake for me, 'cause
Cause
that
it.
that 70 or
Got it.
80 pounds that I gained it within like 8 months. It was rapid, and when you're pregnant, everybody wants to tell
Yeah.
you it's okay, you're having a baby. Yeah, yeah, I'm
Right. For
having
the
a
baby. Right.
baby,
Exactly.
not a gaggle of babies.
Right. Not 12. Right. Exactly.
And
Something
then once
different.
she was
Right.
born, we were still in the midst of COVID. It was July 2020, and they had told me, "Well, if you go outside, if you get COVID or if she gets COVID, she could die. We don't know how it's gonna affect babies." So then I stayed in the house for
Right.
another 6 months.
Yeah. Because it wasn't even like you would go for a walk. You were afraid you run into somebody, and
Yeah,
even
I
with
was
masks
so
on, right?
paranoid
So
about
with the
her,
baby.
and so
Yeah.
at that point, it became like,
Of
"All
course.
right, 4 o'clock. I've pumped all day, she's got her bottles for the night." So that's when the wine came out. That's when I really started hitting, you know,
Of
or my husband would come home after a long day, and that's when I think most people during that time, like, we all turned to drinking pretty heavily, I think, at home.
Oh my God, you would it was like your recycling day. You would see how many
Yeah,
bottles your neighbors
and I
drink, it's crazy.
the alcohol
Full of wine
consumption, like,
beer
my alcohol
bottles.
consumption, I think probably just tripled after, after she was born and after, like, I'd kinda stopped breastfeeding. It was like, "All right, well, I'm home stuck in the house all day." Who
Yeah, well, you don't
who
need
and it
to.
was so normalized
Right.
because everybody was doing it, right? Like, I remember.
Well, and the liquor stores were stayed open
Yes.
as an essential business. I mean, they figure people go crazy if
Yeah,
they
and
can't
there's some
drink,
people that are so dependent on it that they would have like, so in some ways it was essential because you have people who have dependency on alcohol that would have died.
Yeah,
So it wasn't
absolutely.
until,
Yeah.
when I was getting divorced and I was going through, we separated in August, but our house didn't sell to November. And so I would take the day shift with the baby and he would take the night shift. And, to kind of keep the peace, I would leave the house and find something to do or friends to go out with quite a few nights in the week. And I found myself, where do you go? Well, you go to a bar. And so I found myself drowning myself
Yeah.
in, my sorrows. And by the time January rolled around, I was living on my
And that
own for the first time
way.
ever with this this little girl
Right.
who
Right.
I've always wanted a baby. Now my beautiful baby isn't with me 50% of the time because we have 50-50 shared custody. So once again, you're drowning
Okay.
yourself in liquor. And by March of 22, I was just
Yeah.
like, this cannot be my life. This cannot be my story. I can't let this be my legacy.
Yeah.
And so I just stopped cold turkey one day. I had kind of had just a moment, a vision of clarity that brought me to this cannot
Yeah.
be my story. We got to stop. And I discovered roller skating 32 days
No, you're
later.
lucky that you did. Ah, so you hadn't even
No,
done
I
that
had not.
until that point.
I had thought about it, thought I'd seen it on TikTok and I thought it was cool, or exciting, but I didn't have, I remember when I hit 30 days of no alcohol, I remember thinking to myself, I have no hobbies, I have no friends, I have
So what else
nothing
are
in
you
my
gonna
life
do,
that
right?
doesn't revolve around booze. I mean, I had all those things, but everything that I did in my life revolved around like, "Oh, well, what kind of drink is there gonna be a bar? What's the deal?"
Having a
So
drink.
I was like, I had to find something that didn't involve alcohol, and a lot of people in the roller skating community are sober.
Yeah.
It's not, not everyone, but there's a lot of sober people in that community. So it was a good place to end up.
So a little aside, I don't know what happened during COVID. How did you give birth? Like,
Yeah,
did you
we
go to the hospital
yep.
and where they have a special
Luckily,
room
by the
or
time
something?
July had come around, they had figured out most of the, precautions for the hospitals, so nobody was allowed to come see her in the hospital. We weren't allowed to like, once we were there, my husband at the time wasn't allowed to, like, leave and come back after a certain point. Yeah,
You had to
and
stay in,
it was
right?
definitely an interesting experience because there was a lot of shortages with the nurses, so you just it's so funny because I think about, like, if I ever have a child again, what will it be like? Because it would be such a different experience than what I had
Oh
altogether.
yeah, of course.
He couldn't come to any of the
Yeah,
ultrasounds, he couldn't come to any of the tests, and so, that was an
right.
interesting thing to go through all of that alone, all the key moments that you kind of think I never went to a Lamaze class, I had I mean, I really felt
Right.
like TikTok was my only insight as to what, like, I should be doing in my pregnancy. What's everybody else
Yeah,
doing, you
right.
know?
Yeah. And what else are you gonna do? Right? So
Yeah.
Google it. Exactly. Yeah. So then you came out of this whole thing, getting off the alcohol, whatever, but still at that point you're 270, three
Yeah,
hundred
so I was
pounds, you said,
probably so
right?
at that
Very
point, I had
heavy.
lost about 20 once I went through my divorce, I think the cortisol kinda left my body from the stress that I had from, if you go through a divorce, you're clearly stressed. So that first 20 pounds came
Yeah,
off from that.
sure.
Then when I stopped drinking, I probably I didn't lose as much weight from not drinking as I thought I would, I think because I was eating, because then it really turned into like, well, how do we replace the food?
Yeah.
And my bank account was I was living off the proceeds of the house we had sold for a while. So I spent that first year really focusing on just getting sober and staying sober because I had I went to college and in college I was a party girl. Everybody knew me as the party girl. I was a great time. Everybody wanted me around. But I could drink anybody under the
Right.
table. I'm Irish, I come from a family of
Right. None of it was a
yeah,
sober
exactly.
experience, right?
And so
Yes.
It was a long road to find my identity outside of alcohol consumption. And so that first year was, although I was not drinking, I was still definitely partaking in a lot of different probably activities that were still probably self-destructive, but it was just in every other way other than alcohol, like whatever I could do to not drink. Um, and then by year
Right.
2, when I started to look at my bank account and all the money from my house was pretty much gone, my real estate career had kind of almost come to a halt because the market had come to a halt. That's when I had a rock bottom moment. Like, there's no money, I think I had 45 days left. I finally sat down and did the math because I hadn't been living on a budget. I had just kind of been living. And I sat down and I looked and I
Yeah.
figured out that I had 45 days left in reserves until I was dead broke. Like, that was it. And that's when the fear really set in of like,
Yeah.
what am I going to do? And so,
What were you doing for a
I
living
was
at
so
that
I
point?
was doing real estate.
What were
I
you
had a
doing?
couple of deals going on. I had the money in the bank, and then I was, waitressing and doing some just like,
Got it.
selling
Just
furniture
whatever.
on Marketplace, like anything I could do to get a couple of bucks. Because luckily my living expenses were pretty low at the time, but it was dwindling pretty quick.
Mhm.
And so, I
Yeah.
had a rock bottom moment where I remember just kinda getting down on my knees and praying, and it's been a long time since I prayed. It was one of those moments of like, "Hey, God, do you remember me? It's been a while, and
I've been
I'm really
around in a
sorry
while,
for the
but
delay here. I could
yeah.
really use your help." And
Yeah.
I
Right.
decided, that's when I really decided, like, okay, like, we gave up alcohol, but we haven't given up all of the toxic behaviors that went along with it. So I got deep into therapy. I started doing EMDR, which is psychotherapy. It's a reprocessing of trauma
Okay.
through, and really rewiring your brain. I started documenting myself on social media.
Okay.
It's a fake it till you make it sometimes. I didn't have a lot happening in real estate. And because of that, I wasn't really putting myself out there online, and I decided at that moment that, like, everything I was doing that was at least working towards my goals, I was gonna start documenting. Not just the roller skating, but, the being in the office and making the calls and the sending out the handwritten letters and the door knocking.
Right.
And it was funny, I was at the skate rink one night and somebody said to me, "Oh, you're a realtor?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "What are you, a realist skater?" And I said, that's where it came
Oh,
from,
that's
and
where it
I
came
said,
from?
"I sure friggin' am," and that's
Got
like, from that moment, I was like, I just started saying it online, I'm the realest skater, I'm the realest skater." I got,
Yeah.
stickers that had realist skater on it with a QR code that led to my social media, and I'd pass them out at the rink for people to follow me. So at that time, I had about 1,700 followers. It was mostly like friends and family throughout
Okay.
the years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like local
And what's
people,
interesting, and this
right?
is what,
Yeah.
always leads me back to mindset and that having that belief that you're capable no matter how bad things get. I was I knew
Yeah.
the bank account was low. I was hustling as hard as I could. I had 3 deals pending and all of them were on the brink of not closing. Like, anything could if one thing went wrong with any of these deals, they were done. And that's the thing with real estate. You don't know until you
Right.
close.
And you don't get paid. Yep.
And I got a
Absolutely.
call from one of my former bosses in my retail life because I was a pretty, I was a pr I was on the path to district manager, regional manager probably throughout my career in the corporate retail world. I probably could have gone pretty far in that path if I wanted to. And I got a
Okay.
call and they said, "Hey, we have a job opening. We think you'd be perfect for it. Six-figure salary, 10 minutes from your house, y benefits, everything. You can start next week." And so here I am with no money,
Okay.
broke, no sign of
Right.
like, is this gonna work out for me? And I was like, "Let me call you back. Give me a minute to think about it." And I sat there and I thought,
Seems like an easy
it
decision to
it could
make.
have been
Seems
yeah,
yeah.
it was
I mean, that's like God saying to you, you're like, "God, please help me." You're like, "I did. I sent you a job opportunity with benefits and salary, and you have money, and you're all good." And you're
yep.
like, "Oh,"
And,
right?
I thought to myself, "The only reason that you are failing right now is because you have not put everything into this that you could have. You did you if
That's
you
true.
take this
Yeah.
job, you will never have the opportunity again. to go after your dream of being an entrepreneur and doing this yourself. Because, there's some realtors that go and they work for teams and they're fed leads and they do it more as a salary basis. I was doing it pretty much 100%
Yeah.
solo. Um, but it really came down to, if you take this job, you're giving up on yourself and your dream, and you're never gonna get this opportunity back, because it was so hard to leave that corporate salary world to do this in the first place. And there's no way you're gonna be able to do both,
Right.
because this to do real estate full time, you have to be in it every single day. And I turned the job
Yeah.
down, and I remember thinking to myself, "God, I hope I don't regret this."
What, am I an idiot?
You know,
Yeah.
this is
I
this is real
yes.
scary. And I'm even the woman who had
Yeah.
yeah, the woman who
That's
called me to
that's
offer me the job,
crazy.
she's like, "Are you sure?" And I was like, "Listen, I have to give
Right.
myself every fighting chance I have. If I don't make it, if I don't do everything I can over the next, like, 90 days to try to make it, or 45 days, whatever it was at that point, because we were getting down to the wire. Um, if I give up on myself now, I'm never gonna know if I could have made it. So I have to give it everything I've got. I'll call it.
Mhm. Sure, we do regret the things we
Yeah,
never tried, we never
exactly, and I
gave it
was
a
so
shot.
miserable in that corporate world. I hated it. I'd cry every day coming home, but that was a
Yeah.
moment.
Oh, well, so that's a reason, yeah, not to go back to
Yeah,
the
and golden
two-parent life,
handcuffs,
yeah.
right? Like, you can have golden handcuffs all day.
Yeah,
They can pay you as much money, but they can't make you
right,
happy. And so that was a moment where I just had this
right,
really, like, I call them mirror conversations. Like, that was a mirror conversation of, like, the only thing that's making you fail right now is you're not doing everything you could possibly do to be successful. You think you're working hard, but tell me that you're working as hard as you could.
right,
No way. And the day
right,
I cashed $12,000 in checks on the day that I had $58 left. I have a screenshot of it. Like, I have 3 accounts, one for bills, one for taxes, one for savings, and all 3 accounts were drained down to
right,
$58 total across the board. And I cashed
yeah,
$12,000 in checks on that day. And I said, "You just bought yourself 3 months." Because that was about, I think I had like $4,000 in expenses per month at that
right,
point, business and personal. And I said, "You bought
right,
yourself 3 months.
yeah,
Go do it again." And that was when that moment though was, I remember like sitting and just crying in my car, like, "Okay, we bought ourselves 3
right,
months. We can do this. Like, we can do this." And then, fast
yeah,
forward 6 months later, and that was a grind for 6 months, and then 6 months later, I had a wholesale deal that was a six-figure deal, and I brought a partner in on it, but we essentially both walked away with almost a year's salary from one deal. And I remember that was the moment I sat in my car and really cried, because I was like, "Oh my god, if I had taken that job, if I had given up
right.
on myself, would have
It
never
never have
happened.
happened,
I'd
right.
never be here right now."
Yeah, no. Yeah, I mean, look, being in business for yourself, whether it's in sales, whether it's, a retail store, whatever, takes a lot of guts, and it's not easy. Like, people that you see, I mean, if people don't know your story, right, they would think that you have this, little unique approach to marketing and for the real estate through skating because you like doing it, and you're this successful person, you have this big online community. But there was a journey getting there, right? Nobody, I've been in and out of all kinds of legal relationships for work, and it took me a long time to get to the point where I did what I want to do and I market the way I want to market, and business is coming in, and it's all, kind of taking care of itself. But never does it get easy. I mean, never. I get better at it. Like, I'm sure you too, right? Like, in terms of marketing and closing deals and whatever, you've become conditioned to it and you're used to it and you're who you are and you're good at it. Doesn't get easier. You can't stop marketing, can't stop connecting with people, can't stop sharing. Now, I'm curious, when you started blogging and kind of sharing your journalings, your situation, was that because of the therapy that you were going through and that was part of an exercise, or did you, like, I don't know, it was an epiphany of your own that you said, I'm going to share my life online? Like, very few people just
Yeah,
say
it
that
was
to
an
themselves.
epiphany of my own. I think I've always been somebody who walked to the beat of their own drum, but I was brought up in a home where my mom always taught me, you have to be really careful what people think about you. It's so important what people think about you. Yeah,
Right.
we're all
Oh,
taught
we're all
that, and
taught. Yeah.
I think I got to a point where I thought to myself, "Well, where has that gotten me?" Right? Like, where has that gotten me?
Right. I know. Good. Yeah, it's a
And
good
I just
conclusion, right?
I wanted and I
Yeah,
really big part of it was I saw these people who were massively successful in the social media world, and I thought to myself, "Well, if they can do it, why can't I?" And what is it that they're doing? And a lot of them were sharing
right,
very authentically. They were sharing their struggles, their ups and their downs.
right.
And, if you just see
Yep.
someone winning, and it was actually a big eye opener for me when I got divorced. We did it kind of silently. I mean, I kind of popped up 6 months later on social media in a new condo, in a new life, and people were like shocked. Right.
What
Because
happened?
the
Yeah,
online
right.
presence that I had portrayed up until that moment was perfection. My life was perfect. We had this gorgeous house,
Roses,
gorgeous
right,
wedding, gorgeous baby, beautiful tributes to each other on social media about how much we were in love with each other and how wonderful things were. And I think
right,
the shock of
right,
people just being so in shock of that marriage ending because there was no indication that anything was wrong really showed me that, you know, what kind of picture am I painting for people? And why am I painting this picture for people that isn't real? And
right,
not
right.
to say that, it's
Yeah.
funny because people will reach out to me or I'll see people on the street. I've had people now that recognize me in public and they'll say, "Are you the realist skater?" And that to me is like wild. I'm like,
Yeah,
"I
there you
am."
go. It's working.
But
Right.
I have people that'll
Yeah.
say, "How are you doing?" "Oh, never mind. I know how you're doing. I follow you on social media." And I think
See, there you go. And but you know what I think, Connie? I think when you portray your first, vision of your life that's so perfect, I think it makes it even harder to make the jump to expose and share what's really going on because it's like you're kind of admitting that you've been lying to everybody. You've been lying to yourself, but it's also I think when people are out there doing it so perfectly, like this is the vision, I want the world, I want to see me, everything's perfect. When it's really not, it's even harder for them to come and deal with the reality. They're embarrassed to tell their friends because they don't, because like you said, friends are like, boy, I didn't see that one coming. I thought Connie and her husband were like happy and everything's going great for them. We got our own
right.
problems, but they don't have any problems. And you find out that it's not true. And they say, well, if we're such good friends with Connie, why didn't she tell us that?
Yep.
Like people go through that stuff. So did, was there some of that? I mean, I think people listening that have that
There was.
trouble
I
making
think
that
a
jump
lot of us
too.
stay in silence, and when I finally started sharing what was happening in my world, so many people opened up to me about what was happening in their world that I never would have thought either. And,
Yeah.
it's interesting because, like I said, even
Right.
now when people say like, "Oh, I don't need to ask you what's going on in your life. I know I follow you on social." And I still need to remind people, "Listen, I don't share everything. I share a big chunk of my life with you, but there's still a lot that you don't see for the protection of my daughter, for the protection of her
Yeah.
future, for my own
Yeah, of
sanity because
course.
I need to have some privacy because my life is so public." You
Yeah.
know, people
Definitely.
forget that there
Right.
is still social media at the end of the day is always curated in some way or another, right? For an algorithm or for so as authentic
Yeah.
as I am, I still remind people in person, you can ask me how things are because you don't know everything. I know you think you do. And that's it's
Right.
still an but it's still an illusion.
Right.
There's still a veil there.
Yeah.
Right.
Like the big
And,
picture.
but it's so interesting
Yeah.
because I have had so many people. I think I probably know about most people's divorces, like, 6 months before their ex-husband does. Um, because, but people will come to me and they'll say, "Because you went through it, here's what I'm going through," and they'll share with me, and I'm always so shocked at how many of us live in silence of some of the things that transpire. And, you had
Yeah.
mentioned something earlier. My community is definitely it's like 97% women, right? But I do get messages from men every
Yeah.
once in a while who thank me for not just speaking to the female community. I try to keep my message pretty neutral when it comes to gender
Yeah.
because
Right.
so many of us struggle with not believing in ourselves or having trouble in relationships or weight,
Big time.
toxic behavior, alcohol, and that is not a gender specific problem. That is an everybody problem.
No.
And so
Yeah.
it's been nice to also get messages from men every once in a while who say that I've been able to help them with similar things. And it's why I very much try to make sure that I make my message for everybody. Although I do think women need a space, and I'm glad to be that space for them. Um, I want to be somebody who
Right.
anybody can look to and say, okay, I can pull some inspiration from this story because there's key factors that as the human experience goes, these are key factors in our human experience.
Right. Now, just for people listening, you're not a therapist, right? You're not a licensed professional. These are genuine amateur people sharing stories of their own life experience, and they can take it for what it,
Disclaimer, I
for
am
what it
not
is,
a
right?
licensed professional in any except for the hard knocks of life.
Right.
That is the only cri Yeah,
Right. You're a
licensed
licensed realtor.
realtor.
That's it.
Yeah, and, I think it's funny
Yeah.
because 'cause I've actually started partnering with some licensed therapists to bring on, maybe, like, and help me,
Hmm.
curate some of the items that I'm gonna offer in my mindset programs go forward so that there is that element of,
Hmm.
"Hey, like, a professional has overlooked these and this," but I am not a licensed therapist, and I when I it's funny because I do have people that'll come to me with some very, very heavy things and I will remind them, "Hey, you should definitely get a therapist because that's what helped me through this. This is the kind of therapy that I sought out. This
Right.
is what worked for me." So I can hold space for you and I can share my personal experiences with you. But some of the stuff that we go through is extremely heavy. So as much as you might want to have like a mindset coach to help you get through it, you should pair that with some professional counseling because I had to pair the two. And that was pretty critical in my success.
Yeah, absolutely. No, good advice for people because our advice should not be construed as professional advice.
That's
We're
it.
just talking and sharing and things like that. Yeah. No, look, I remember I know everybody thinks like, oh, locally, like I'm the successful attorney and I struggle like everyone else. So there was a time where I had a bigger firm and I had partners and I had been struggling for a long time and it wasn't going the way I wanted to do. And I remember I told my wife I'd been going months and months and months and looking at things. And I lost a lot of friends because of this too. And I remember my wife went away to see her best friend down in Key West. I was going to come join them for like July 4th, must have been the summertime. And I called my wife up and said, I'm not coming down. She's like, why? I was like, well, I'm breaking up and shutting down the firm and moving out, like moving out of my own firm. My name was on the door. So she's like, what? I'm like, well, we've been talking about this for months. She goes, I know, but I didn't think. Literally in 4 days, I packed everything up, took the sign off the wall, told the guys I'm leaving. Most of them don't even talk to me anymore. And I had to start over completely. I had like a little cubicle, my dad's old office. Didn't know what I was going to do, where I was going to go. But I got to the point where I was just unhappy with, everything I was trying to do this. And it wasn't working, all the marketing I was doing for the whole group and the thing. And I just said, you know what? Got to regroup. And it was embarrassing because I had to call clients and say, no, I'm not there anymore. I'm here and I'm doing this. And then
Yeah.
the name of the firm's different and whatever. But, I don't know. And you shared this already, like for people listening, like how bad does it have to get? How upset do you have to be to make a change? Like a good example was you had this job opportunities, right? You had no money in the bank. You had a lot of guts. I grant, I give you a lot of credit for that. But I think maybe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it was more like you remembered how terrible the whole experience of being in the corporate world was. And is that worth going back to this seemingly right secure job where you have income and benefits versus,
You're
I'm going to
right.
the cliff
I'm
anyway.
here.
I'm going to cross the road bridge. Yeah. And I think I can make it across. What do I really have to
Right.
lose at this
That
point?
is
Right.
definitely 99% of it because I remember I worked at Victoria's Secret for a long time, and I remember
Oh, nice. I lived in Columbus, Ohio for a while. That's where what's his name's from? Who's the guy? You know the
Les
song
Wexner.
Victoria's Secret, started by a
Yes.
man.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, I lived in Columbus, Ohio. That's
So,
where he's from.
we
Yeah,
would be it would be a 12-hour shift. It would be 1 in the morning, and you'd have to fold every panty by color, by style in a
yeah,
10,000 unit, we called them panty bars. So, you fold an underwear at 1 in the morning. Now, you're getting paid buco bucks. Like, I mean, I was getting paid very well
right.
for the job, but they worked you. And
To reach,
I remember
yeah,
tears streaming down my face thinking like, "This is it, huh? This is my purpose?"
this is
folding underwear. Like,
folding
this is my
panties at 1
calling
o'clock.
in life. And,
Yeah,
and not to say that, I mean, I
yeah,
learned a lot from that career path. When I was with Victoria's Secret, it was at their peak. I was at the Victoria's Secret fashion show with Taylor Swift back in 2014, like way back in the day,
yeah.
the
Right,
whole
right.
deal.
Yeah,
But
angels, the whole deal.
when I got that call to go back to that retail world, and I mean, it was a very similar type of corporation I'd be working for at that time. That thought, like that moment of being in that moment came right back to me of like, do you want to live a life that you're just getting by and you are taking the easy way out? Because this is an easy path here.
Right. That's
It's
not
not
fulfilling.
fulfilling.
It's not
And what
fulfilling.
is it worth to you to not be fulfilled? Um, a big, one I would
Yep.
say the nail in the coffin for my marriage was my decision to leave my corporate salary job. We had just bought a house, a much, much bigger house and a much bigger mortgage than we were used to. We had just had the baby. Things were already rocky. And, he asked me, please don't leave, stay another year or so. Um, please don't leave. It's too uncertain. And I remember just kind of drawing that line in the sand and saying, I can't do this for another year. It'll kill me. I'm not home with the baby enough.
Yeah.
I'm working nonstop. It's not fulfilling. Another year of this will break me, and I just can't do it. Um,
Yeah.
it's
And that's just not worth it. Like, what is that worth?
Yeah,
What's a
and
life worth,
because there comes a
Yeah.
point in time where like there's always going to be an excuse to stay, right? Like there will always be an excuse to stay in the
Course.
relationship, in the job, in the situation, the friendship that's toxic, whatever it is. It's so much easier to say,
Yeah.
well, let's give it another month. Let's give it another 6 months. Let's give it another year. And next thing you know, 5 years has passed. You're in the same position you've been in, and you feel even more trapped than you did because you're deeper in the quicksand. It is.
It's harder and harder to get out too, and harder to,
Yep.
say to yourself, I'm moving and change. It was hard for me too to make a change like that, knowing what
It
the ramifications. But, you get to the point where, like you said, you hit rock bottom. Like, I just can't do this anymore. Like, regardless what the consequences are going to be, and I got to get across it. I know that if I go this route,
Yes.
I'm going to be
Yeah.
miserable, right? You knew that. And that's what forced you the other, but I think there's a lot of people out there that they know they're going to be miserable, but they still won't take the risk to do it. And it's unfortunate because I think ultimately they end up, sad and lost. There's a lot of people like that out
It's
there.
so
Maybe
much
that's why we get
therapy.
so
And
much
I think,
therapy coming.
one thing for people to understand when you do take a risk, so whether you're considering taking the risk or you're already in it and you are at this low point, it is not a linear path to success. It is no,
Life
and
is not a
I
straight
tell
line.
people all the
No
time, like,
question
there were,
about it.
like, 3 rock bottom moments I had. Like, I had one for drinking, I had one for my business, I had one in my personal relationships, and every time, it's almost like as
Yeah.
long as you don't crash as far down as you crashed the last time, it's like the stock market, right? Like, you're gonna have those ups and downs. The trajectory at the end of the year, you
Yep.
have to look at the whole picture. Did I have growth at the end of the year? I may, you're gonna have days that are up
Yeah.
25% and then days that are down 17%, and we're gonna keep going on that path. But when you look at
Yep.
the overall picture, are you on a path of growth and are you on a path of success? And, and then some people are gonna try this
Right.
path and realize it's not for them. Okay, you know what? I actually like working for somebody else. I don't wanna be an entrepreneur, and that's fine too, but
That's
at least you tried.
right. As long as
At
they're
least you
happy.
gave it
Right.
a shot. But
Yeah.
I'd say 99% of people that give it a shot and stick
Yeah.
with it and they stick through those really hard moments, you come out the other end feeling like, wow, like I went through battle and I won. I didn't win the war yet, but I won that battle. So let's go to the next one. It's time to go to the next one.
Right. And like I said, it doesn't get easier, but you do get better at it. You get better dealing with the issues. You get better dealing with the stress. You get, sometimes, look, I have bad days too. And sometimes I just say, you know what? I've taken care of the immediate things. I'm going to pack it up and
Going
I'm
home.
going home for the day. And I got to take a rest and just climb the mountain tomorrow. And things have a way of like working themselves out. It's funny. I tell my wife that there's things happen during the day, sometimes for clients, but sometimes also for us, me and her, right? That I don't even tell her about because I know from life experience that 99% of them will be resolved before the end of the
Yep.
day or within a few days. So why do I have to tell her something just to unload to make myself feel better when I know? But 10, 20 years ago, I couldn't deal with that. Like I wasn't capable of dealing with that. If it was bad, I would share it. I'm like,
Yep.
and she'd freak out, whatever. And she didn't need to. So, but a lot of that is life experience, right? About going through it and dealing with it, coming out the other side and saying, wow, that wasn't so bad, or I've
Yep.
been
I
through
had
this
a rough
before,
day
right?
yesterday. This week's been a rough week. And, like coming into this magazine made my day today. But yesterday, by the end of my
I'm sure.
quote unquote work day, which never stops, I wrote a message to my broker and I said, I quit being a realtor today. I will hire myself again tomorrow at
Yeah.
6 a.m., but I quit today and I am done for the day.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we're
You're
just
entitled to
done
do that.
today. Yep.
Yeah. By the way, I got to say, I love your Rhode Island accent because you don't have an accent unless there's like an R there
Yep.
that gets
I'm
dropped.
originally from Boston, so my family's
I
from
love it.
Boston originally. So everybody does comment.
Ah,
My accent
so they,
gets when I used
they
to
pop.
drink. Oh my
Yeah.
accent was way worse. But um, it's
Oh,
funny because that's why I
I'm
say I'm the
sure that's so
realist
funny.
skater, right? New England's favorite realist skater.
Real
But it is
estate.
there's no R. There's just
I
an
love it.
AH at the end of every word.
Yeah. All right. So you
Yeah.
and I can go on like this forever and keep talking about these things. But I want people to know how they can get involved in your community and connect with you. So tell us, we'll put links in the show notes, but tell us the best way for people watching and listening to get involved in your
So
world
absolutely
and
social
connect with
media.
you.
I'm the realist skater across all platforms. TheRealESkater.
Okay.
I'm also my YouTube is on the rise.
Okay.
We're going to be launching a docu-series. I've hired a videography crew. They've been following me around for a couple of months. We have 3 episodes done so far. That's
Nice.
going to be released. I don't have a release date yet for
Okay.
it. We're probably going to release it kind of as a series, one after the other. So once we have enough episodes where we feel like it's showing the full picture, but um,
Great
that's kind of a
marketing
meet me
approach.
for more
Yeah.
than 90 seconds type deal because Instagram really just gives you like a quick little hit of me that brings you a little bit more into my world from childhood until now and kind of the things I've gone through to get me here. And if you are local to New
Great.
England, my team and I are licensed in Rhode Island, Massachusetts. We're about to pick up Connecticut. And anyone who's in the real estate world, if you're looking to buy or sell, I'm happy. I'm happy to help you. I roller skate through the houses on the house tours. People get a kick out of that. They love it. That's
Yeah.
my shtick.
I love it.
But I would love to just continue to expand this community, bring more people into it. And then SkateMate is launching in July. So if you're super local to Rhode Island or it's not too far of a drive for you and you want to learn to roller skate and kind of see what that's all about, SkateMate launches in July. So
Yeah. It's like a
exactly.
meetup
Yep,
for
that's gonna be a
skaters.
meetup for people who
Got
aspire to
it.
skate. We'll have rentals available. So that's been really cool to partner with United Skates. They're offering me the rentals, and I have another company that if I do outside skate events, they're also gonna have rentals available. So,
Now, I know I've
yeah.
pushed you on this. We've been talking about it, but right now, if you want to get involved in your
Yeah, so
community, it's free,
SkateMate will
right?
have
There's no,
like if you come to skate, it's gonna be 20 I think it's like 20 or $25 for the lesson,
for the
because
event.
I also have to pay the rink for
Yeah. But what
online
about your
community at the
online
moment is
community if they
free.
want to participate?
There may be a separate community
Okay.
launching soon that's gonna have, like, a pay for entry, but that's gonna be more involved. You'll get more FaceTime with me.
Yeah. Yeah. You have more benefits. Of course. That's the whole
Yep.
point of monetizing. You
It's
bring
so
more to the
funny.
community. So, well, Connie, I can't thank you enough for Friday putting the time aside. I know we
Yeah.
connected yesterday. You're like, are we still on tomorrow? I'm like, yeah.
No, this has been a blast.
So it's awesome. Any final remarks that you want to share? I mean, you shared most of it, so I think everybody's pretty much on the
Yeah,
same
the
page
way
with
I
how to
end
connect
most
with
of,
you.
my podcasts or any interview is just to remind people that it's never too late to change your life. I don't care where you are and what stage you're in or what you've been through or what you've done. It's never too late to decide you wanna be somebody else or be the highest and best version of yourself.
Yeah,
That version of you already exists, you just gotta
right.
find them.
Yep, 100%. I agree. It's never,
Ever.
never, never too late. You don't like what you're doing. So, Connie, thanks again. And yeah, stay in touch. I want to watch the community grow and see what's going on and follow you and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, let's end the show. I'll leave it up to my VA to do the editing if I can find our
Thanks,
mouse.
Mitch.
Let's see. There we go. All right. In addition to being a podcast host, I'm also a small business attorney, mostly providing legal services in New York and New Jersey. With over 3 decades of experience, we can handle most transactional issues. So if you're watching the show and you encounter some sort of legal issue, reach out to us and visit our website, mindhackerlaw.com. Thanks for tuning into the show and for continuing to support us.